Hello, everyone. Hope you are doing well. So here we have one of the summary-based question, which is known as the para-summary. And the direction for the question is, there is a passage given below, which is followed by four alternate summaries. We need to choose the option that best captures the essence of the passage. Okay. So let's look at the text. What does it try to tell us and identify the main ideas or key points for summary. The first one, the text begins with the idea called as some have suggested that the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank in 2023 set a more recent moral hazard, moral hazard precedent. After the bank failed, the US government stepped in to protect the depositors. This might encourage other bankers to engage in risky lending practices, confident that someone else will handle any fallout. Another example of moral hazard would be when the head of an organization makes a self interested decision, which could include increasing the size of their golden parachute that put their subordinates and the future of the organization at risk. But not them. If things go wrong, moral hazard can also happen at a more individual scale, such as when someone who is infected with a virus decides not to take precautions like staying at home or wearing a mask, thereby putting those in their vicinity or nearby at risk without incurring any additional cost to themselves. Well, if we look into this particular text, so what do we find out? We find out that called as uh, the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank in 2023, and it set a more recent moral hazard. When we talk about moral hazard, the passage defines moral hazard as a what? As a situation where individuals or entities take risk because they do not bear the full consequences of their actions, isn't it? So, second, which is talking about Silicon Valley Bank example, the passage mentions the 2023 Silicon Valley Bank collapses where the US government's intervention, right? So where US government stepped or intervention to protect depositors. Okay, it's seen as a setting a precedent for moral hazard in banking, possibly encouraging risky behavior, right? Encouraging what? That called as a risky behavior. Risky behavior. Okay. Then also the author talks about what? Um, individual example. The passage gives a personal level example um, of moral hazard where an infected person disregard precaution because it is stated, no, um, take precaution like staying at home or wearing a mask, thereby putting those in their vicinity at not at risk, right? So the passage gives a personal level example of moral hazard where an infected person disregards precautions, endangering others without any direct cost to themselves. So these points captures the essence of the passage, which discusses various examples of moral hazard across different scales and contexts. So these are called as points need to be observed. Now look at the choice. Which of the option that presents that possibly reflect to these are the ideas? So the question asks which summary best captures the essence of the passage. The passage discusses moral hazard using examples from banking, corporate decision, and individual health practice. Look at the first choice. The first choice stated the 2023 Silicon Valley Bank collapse exemplifies moral hazard where protection for risky actions encourages more risky behavior in banking, corporate decisions, and individual health practices. Now, if we observe that option one, um, the- so correctly covers all four key aspects of the passage: moral hazard, the Silicon Valley Bank um, collapses, and corporate decision making and individual health behaviors. It accurately reflects how these elements are interconnected, isn't it? So we can say that option one would be the correct one, but let's look at the other options. Option two stated the financial instability caused by the Silicon Valley Bank collapses supported by government bailouts can lead to moral hazards in other banks. Okay. Uh, uh, Focusing mainly on how this influences. Okay, just a minute. Yeah. So focusing solely on how this influences corporate leaders' decision. Mm, if we observe this, mm, focusing solely on how this influences corporate leaders' decisions. So this focuses primarily on the impact of the, you can say that SBP or Silicon Valley Bank collapses or collapse and its influence on corporate decisions, but it doesn't indicate what the discussion about individual health practices, isn't it? Or individual behavior and moral hazard in public health. So hence we can say option two cannot complete the summary of it. Look into the option three. So option three stated the 2023 Silicon Valley Bank collapse was primarily caused by government policies and similar policies that could lead to broader economic problems without addressing individual behaviors related to moral hazard. Now, this also not been considered as the correct one because this incorrectly attributes the SPP collapse to government policies, right? Um, which misrepresents the fact. You can say that. It also fails to address the broader implication of moral hazard on corporate and individual behavior. So, hence, option three cannot be taken as the answer of the summary. So, let's look at the fourth one. The failure of Silicon Valley Bank in 2023 and subsequent government protection of depositors that could lead to risky lending practices in the future, leading moral hazard in both corporate and individual action. Okay, now option four attempts to link the some you can say that Silicon Valley Bank collapses or collapse to future risky lending practices, but that's so in vague manner. It also doesn't clearly address the individual behavior aspect, making the summary seems incomplete, isn't it? So, hence we can find out option one is the correct answer because it comprehensively includes all the critical elements discussed in the passage. The concept of moral hazard, the specific case of the SPP collapse or called as the Silicon Valley Bank collapse, corporate leadership decisions, um, and individual health practices or health related behaviors. So, this summary captures the essence of the passage most effectively. Hence, we can say option one would be the correct answer. Hope you understood this. That's all. Thank you.